Welcome, everybody, to our deep dive into AI and judicial decision-making.
It's certainly a hot topic.
Yeah, it really is. It seems like it's everywhere these days.
Absolutely.
From courtrooms to Twitter feeds, everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah, and it's not just some sci-fi fantasy anymore.
Yeah.
We're seeing real-world implementations, and that's raising some seriously thought-provoking questions.
Exactly. And speaking of thought-provoking questions, we've got this brand new report from the Justice AI Institute.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And let me tell you, it doesn't shy away from the controversy.
No, it doesn't.
They're suggesting that AI could actually make our courts more efficient and less biased.
Yeah, it's a fascinating proposition, isn't it?
It is.
This idea that an algorithm could potentially deliver justice more swiftly and impartially than humans do.
Right.
Of course, there are significant risks to consider as well.
For sure. For sure. So let's start with the potential upsides, because I have to admit, this whole efficiency argument is pretty compelling.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with that.
Imagine, AI just plowing through mountains of legal paperwork in a fraction of the time it takes us to mortals.
Right.
Sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, proponents of AI in the judicial system often highlight this very point.
Right.
They say, think about it. AI could clear those daunting court backlogs we hear so much about.
Yeah.
Expedite legal proceedings.
And for people who, can't afford lengthy legal battles, I mean, that's a game changer.
Absolutely. That could be a real game changer, especially for those who, simply can't afford to be caught up in the legal system for years and years.
Exactly. And it's not just theoretical either, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Estonia is already using AI to analyze legal documents.
Yeah, they are.
And they're seeing some pretty impressive results.
Yeah, they've got a system that's helping lawyers cut down their case preparation time significantly.
Yeah, I read somewhere it's like a 20% reduction in time.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
That's huge.
It is, and that's just the beginning. As the technology advances, we could see even more dramatic improvements in efficiency.
Wow. Okay, but let's say we can tackle the speed issue. What about the human element?
Right.
Can we really trust an algorithm to make fair judgments,
Mm-hmm.
especially in these really complex cases where things like intent and motive are so crucial?
Well, that's where the debate gets really interesting, because proponents argue that AI could actually be the key to achieving truly objective judgments.
Okay.
They believe that by removing human emotion from the equation, we could eliminate the potential for bias.
Okay.
And that could lead to fair outcomes for everyone involved.
I mean, there's a certain logic to that.
There is.
We've all heard these stories about judges letting personal feelings or preconceived notions cloud their judgment.
For sure.
Could AI be the answer to, ensuring that everyone gets a fair hearing regardless of their background?
Precisely. Dr. Lena Morrison, a leading voice in the field of AI and law, has even gone so far as to say that AI could be the key to removing centuries-old biases from our legal systems.
Well, okay, I see where they're coming from, but I got to say,
Right.
We've all seen those sci-fi movies where robots take over and it never ends well.
Right.
Are we really ready to hand over the reins of justice to algorithms?
Right.
I mean, what if they make a mistake?
That's a valid concern, and it brings us to one of the biggest challenges with AI in the legal system.
Okay.
And that's transparency.
Yeah.
These algorithms can be incredibly complex,
Right.
like black boxes that spit out a decision without revealing how they got there.
Exactly. And if we can't understand the reasoning behind an AI's judgment, how can we trust it right?
Right.
And how can we challenge a decision if we don't even know what factors went into it?
You've hit the nail on the head. The lack of transparency is a major obstacle to wider acceptance of AI in judicial decision-making.
Yeah.
It raises fundamental questions about due process and accountability.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the potential for bias creeping into the algorithms themselves.
Right.
I mean, if these systems are trained on data that already reflects existing societal biases, wouldn't we just be perpetuating those inequalities?
That's a critical point. And it's a risk that experts have been warning about for years.
Right.
Professor Raj Patel, a prominent researcher in ethical AI, put it this way.
Okay.
We risk encoding societal prejudices into our legal systems.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
So what are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
It feels like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Oh.
On one hand,
Oh.
the potential for increased efficiency and objectivity is enticing.
Of course.
But on the other hand,
yeah.
there are these serious concerns about transparency and bias that we can't just ignore.
You're right. It's a complex dilemma, and there are no easy answers, but one thing is clear.
What's that?
We need to proceed with extreme caution and engage in a robust public conversation about the implications of using AI in judicial decision-making.
I think that's a great place to leave it for now.
Yeah, definitely lots to think about.
Lots to think about.
It's a balancing act.
So how do we even begin to strike that balance?
Right.
I mean, AI is already being used in some courtrooms, right?
It is.
Where are we seeing the biggest impact so far?
One area that's gotten a lot of attention is the use of AI in risk assessment tools,
Okay.
particularly when it comes to bail and sentencing decisions.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
You're saying an algorithm could help decide whether someone stays in jail or gets to go home while they await trial.
Yeah.
That feels like a huge responsibility to hand over to a computer.
It is a significant development.
Right.
These risk assessment tools are designed to predict the likelihood of a defendant reoffending or slipping their court date.
Okay.
So the algorithm analyzes various data points,
Okay.
like criminal history, age, employment status, and then spits out a risk score.
Okay, I can see how that could be useful for judges
Yeah.
that are overloaded with cases.
Exactly.
But how do we know these algorithms aren't biased against certain groups of people?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And it's one that has fueled a lot of debate and concern.
Sure.
Critics argue that these risk assessment tools, even with the best intentions, can actually perpetuate existing racial and socioeconomic disparities in our justice system.
So, for instance, if the algorithm is trained on data that shows a higher arrest rate for people from certain neighborhoods, it might unfairly flag them as high risk, even if their individual circumstances don't warrant it.
Exactly. And that could result in more people from those communities being denied bail or receiving harsher sentences,
Wow.
even if they posed no real threat to public safety.
That's a disturbing thought.
It is.
It feels like we're risking creating a system where algorithms reinforce the very biases we're trying to eliminate.
The real concern.
Right.
And it highlights why transparency and continuous scrutiny of these systems are absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
We need to be able to see what data is being used to train these algorithms.
Right.
And understand how those algorithms are reaching their conclusion.
So how do we address that?
Right.
Are there ways to make these algorithms more transparent and accountable?
There are several approaches being explored. Some experts advocate for audits of these AI systems to check for bias.
Right.
Others are pushing for regulations that would require human oversight in the decision-making process, essentially ensuring that a human judge has the final say.
It sounds like there's a real push to make sure AI serves justice rather than dictates it.
There is.
That feels like a step in the right direction.
It is encouraging to see that awareness growing.
Yeah.
But the conversation about AI in the legal system goes beyond these specific applications.
Okay.
We also need to consider the broader philosophical implications.
Ringing.
Think about the very essence of a fair trial.
Okay.
Something we hold dear in our legal system.
Right.
Traditionally, that includes things like the right to confront your accuser, the right to present evidence in your defense, the right to be judged by a jury of your peers.
Right.
But if an algorithm is making crucial decisions in a case, how do those rights play out?
That's a really good point. It feels almost impossible to cross-examine an algorithm or argue your case to a computer program. Does relying on AI inherently erode those fundamental rights we've fought so hard to protect?
It's a question that legal scholars are grappling with right now. And there's no easy answer. Some argue that AI, by its very nature, introduces a level of opacity that is incompatible with the principles of due process.
It feels like we're walking a tightrope here.
We are.
We want the efficiency and potential objectivity that AI offers. But we can't sacrifice the core values of fairness and transparency that define a just legal system.
Exactly. It's a delicate balancing act.
And
it's playing out not just in courtrooms, but in legislative chambers and public forums around the world.
You mentioned that different countries are approaching this issue in different ways. Can you give us a sense of how those approaches vary?
Absolutely. It's fascinating to see how cultural and political values shape the adoption of AI in legal systems globally. China, for example, has been quite aggressive in integrating AI into its courts.
Okay.
They've developed what they call smart courts.
Wow.
That use algorithms to streamline case processing,
Okay.
analyze evidence, and even offer suggestions for sentencing.
Wow, that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It does.
But I imagine that approach might raise some eyebrows in other parts of the world.
You're right. In Europe, there's a much stronger emphasis on data privacy and human rights.
Okay.
Which has led to stricter regulations around AI use in legal settings.
Okay.
They're proceeding much more cautiously.
Got it.
Particularly when it comes to AI's role in criminal justice.
So it's a real spectrum of approaches.
It is.
With some countries embracing AI wholeheartedly, and others taking a more measured approach.
Right.
Where does the U.S. fall on that spectrum?
The U.S. is somewhere in the middle. We've seen a lot of experimentation with AI in certain areas like risk assessment tools.
Right.
But there's also growing pushback from civil liberties groups and legal scholars who are raising concerns about potential bias and the erosion of due process rights.
It sounds like this debate is far from settled.
It is.
We're still figuring out what role AI should play in our justice system.
Right.
And how to ensure it aligns with our values.
That's precisely it. And it's a conversation that deserves our full attention.
Right.
We're at a crossroads.
Yeah.
And the choices we make now will have a profound impact on the future of justice.
Well, you've certainly given us a lot to think about. This whole issue is so much more complex than I realized.
It is a complex landscape.
Yeah.
But complexity shouldn't deter us from engaging with it thoughtfully and critically.
Right.
This is about more than just algorithms and data points.
Right.
It's about the fundamental principles of fairness, accountability, and human dignity.
You're absolutely right. So where do we go from here? If we want to ensure that AI serves justice rather than undermines it, what steps can we take as individuals, as a society?
That's a great question, and it leads us to the heart of what we need to consider moving forward.
Okay.
First and foremost, we need to educate ourselves about the potential benefits and risks of AI in the legal system.
Knowledge is power. Right.
Absolutely.
The more we understand about how these systems work and what's at stake, the better equipped we'll be to advocate for responsible development and use of this technology.
Precisely. We need to demand transparency from those developing and implementing AI systems in the legal realm.
Right.
We can't allow these algorithms to operate in a black box.
Right.
We need to know what data they're trained on,
Yeah.
how they reach their conclusions, and what safeguards are in place to prevent bias.
It sounds like we need to approach this with a healthy dose of skepticism.
We do.
And a commitment to holding those in power accountable.
Absolutely. We can't simply accept assurances that these systems are fair and impartial.
Right.
We need to see the evidence.
Yeah.
We need independent audits.
Okay.
We need mechanisms for challenging AI-driven decisions. And we need to ensure that human judgment remains a central component of our justice system.
So it's about finding that delicate balance between harnessing the potential of AI
It is.
while preserving the core values that underpin a just society.
That's it in a nutshell. It's a challenging but essential task.
Right.
And it's a task that requires all of us to engage in this conversation.
Yeah.
To ask tough questions.
Right.
And to demand a future where technology serves justice, not the other way around.
Yeah, it feels like we're kind of standing at the edge of a new era in law.
Yeah.
We get to help shape what that looks like.
It's a powerful way to put it. This isn't just about tweaking existing systems.
Right.
It's about potentially redefining the very meaning of justice in the digital age.
And that brings us back to you, dear listener.
Yes.
We've thrown a lot of information your way, but now it's time to kind of flip the script and ask, what are your thoughts on all of this?
What resonates with you? What concerns you?
Yeah.
What questions are swirling around in your head after diving into this complex topic?
Yeah, because let's be honest, this isn't some abstract academic debate.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
This is about real lives.
Absolutely.
Real consequences.
Yeah.
It's about the kind of future we want to build, a future where technology either amplifies justice or erodes it.
Imagine a world where AI helps level the playing field.
Right.
Ensuring that everyone, regardless of their background or circumstances, has equal access to a fair and impartial hearing.
Or picture a world where algorithms riddled with hidden biases perpetuate existing inequalities, creating a two-tiered system of justice.
The path we choose is up to us.
Yeah.
I can't afford to be passive observers in this technological revolution.
Right.
We need to be active participants, demanding transparency, accountability, and a commitment to human-centered justice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as you continue to explore this topic, here's a final thought to ponder. If AI is going to play a role in shaping the future of justice, how can we ensure that it embodies the values of fairness, equity, and human dignity that we hold dear?
It's a question that deserves our deepest consideration.
It really does.
Our most rigorous debate, and our unwavering commitment to building a future where justice truly prevails.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep demanding a justice system that lives up to its highest ideals.